Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Metaphysical. In part one of our deep dive into the Dragon's Triangle, we talked about evidence of ancient civilizations, a supernormal samurai, disappearing ghost ships, and Kublai Khan. But that was really just the beginning when it comes to legends, mysteries, and remote viewing data on this fascinating area off the coast of Japan. Did you know there are strange cryptids and powerful beings that reportedly lurk in the waters? I mean, it's called the Dragon's Triangle for a reason. So, want to hear what that reason is and the story of the Dragon King? We'll join a remote viewer, John Vivanco, and me, investigative researcher Rob Counts, for a show that's out of this world.
Yeah. And are you listening to the Metaphysical podcast or watching us on a video platform? Well, if you are, please leave us a 5-star rating and review to help us reach even more people. And make sure you like and subscribe wherever you're watching, listening, whatever.
John, how you doing?
Good.
Good.
This is good stuff.
This is great stuff.
Because the reason why it's so great is because it's getting weird. And I want this to get weirder. So this show is going to go like extremely weird.
Fully weird.
Weird.
That's right. So the thing that's so interesting about, this opening that we just read is really, I always get really interested as soon as legends and cryptids start getting brought up. And we're talking about dragons here. So what's actually going on? I mean, what is this legend that there are dragons under the Devil's Sea? Do you know anything about this, John?
Oh, I mean, I've heard of them. And I have a weird theory that we'll get to later.
Interesting. Okay. Awesome. So apparently these dragons attack sea vessels passing by to satiate their hunger, churning up waves, whirlpools, thick fog, which are associated with dragons, and sudden storms. These stories originated around 1000 BC, according to some sources. Now, what's interesting is the Chinese dragon is not known to be an evil type of dragon. These are divine beings, like gods or something, that they often see meaning they're righteous in nature. So what they're talking about, this is really interesting. Could potentially be something else, or it could just be, beings that are dealing fate. I don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, too, it's like you get to the Dragon's Triangle and all the volcanoes, seismic activity, electromagnetic disturbances that you find there, the typhoons, birthplace of typhoons in the area. You're going to have a lot of, I mean, here's the thing, when we get to modern historians and academics, they're going to take this story about dragons and just turn it into, well, we're a lot smarter now. And
exactly.
And they really didn't know what was happening. And so they just called it a dragon. That's it. But is there something behind it? I mean, come on. Is there something behind it? That's what we want to know.
That's what we want to know. That's what this show needs to find out for sure. So in 1944, a Japanese pilot named Toshiaki Lang saw a huge sea monster as he traversed the Devil's Sea during an aerial battle. So from the plane, the serpent-like monster swam through the waters quickly, its head out of the water. Now, it had 2 huge triangular wings that helped it navigate through the churning waters. It was about 150 feet long. That is a bizarre sounding sea monster. And according to some sources, as many as 700 dragons, I guess. Oh, no, sorry. According to some sources, as many as 700 lives were lost in the area between 1952 and 1954. That's a tremendous amount of lives.
That's weird, right? I mean, that's like it just kind of reminds me of like cryptids that show up in areas and disappearances that start happening in areas. And I don't know of any other locations other than this area where we've heard of dragons under the water, under the sea. I mean, could this be a, I don't know, one of those dinosaur sharks? What was it? Megalodon?
Megalodon, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's things under the ocean See, there are things under the ocean that are absolutely unknown, and you're getting close to the Mariana Trench right here as well. Um, but we're not just talking about the physical, right? The material side of things. We're talking about this area. I do believe is a portal to another location. That's what I think. That's based off a lot of the data I've seen.
Well, and we've got some type of interdimensional travelers based off of our last episode. If you didn't see our episode before this, please go check that out, because there's a very strange story. What was it called? The ship called again, John?
It was called the Utsurubuni.
Surobune.
Surubuni. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
yeah, where some type of craft washed up to shore, and yeah, whole story about
right. It was, yeah. I mean, it was just basically traveling through dimensions in the Devil's Triangle. Well, these stories, the dragon stories, are interesting because where in Western culture do the dragon stories coalesce? We usually find them typically in Eastern cultures, right? There's not a whole lot in the Western cultures. It's not huge. I don't know. It's not a huge cultural thing.
Yeah, like King Arthur, fire breathing dragons,
So
knights.
there were some, right? Yeah.
Definitely, but they're a completely different type of dragon. I mean, you're talking about some type of monster thing in the West, and then you've got these mystical divine dragons in the East, and there was just no other word for it, so they called them the same things.
Right.
They're very, very different, and
right.
you've got like there's also different lore around them, right? I mean, the dragon that you hear about in like the Hobbit books and in the films, of these dragons that lust after gold and sit on treasure for a long period of time. These are the stories that were passed down for a very long time in our culture, right? And there's Smaug right there. But out there in the East, you've just got, seeing one of those was a blessing. And
right.
And you'd often find something like, actually, I believe that they even believed that it was the dragons that brought the fog in. Like, if there was fog, there was some type of mystical thing going on in the area, and you might even see it. There were water dragons, there were air dragons, there all kinds
the Naga.
Yeah, and then there's the Naga. You've got beings that had human bodies and serpent, basically human tops, serpent, legs, basically, that people had known about for a really long time.
Yeah.
In different cultures in Asia too, not just one.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very interesting.
Yeah.
So located in Uchiura Bay in Hokkaido, Japan, there was an octopus monster, I guess.
Like a kraken?
I guess so. Now, we talked about this in the Seas series,
right.
That's on Rise TV from Edge Wonder. That series covers cryptids of the abyss being spotted for millennia, even worshipped, and the occult mysteries hidden in the abyss, like Aleister Crowley and H.P. Lovecraft, who were all over that. Now, Lindsay, maybe you can help me with this, but what I think is so interesting about this account that we were talking about before, where this Toshaki Lang saw the huge sea monster from the air. There was a guy recently who he uploaded it. He just had his drone out, right? And he was on his ship. I don't know if it was Loch Ness or another lake. I can't remember which. He just uploaded a show or a video clip onto YouTube innocently. And then everyone started being like, yo, dude, there's something in the water. And so he caught on his drone something in the sea that looked like the Loch Ness monster.
Oh yeah.
Really, really interesting video. Have you seen that, John?
I haven't seen it, no, but I believe it because we've looked at some of these supposed things in lakes like Loch Ness and Lake Champlain and locations like that where there are legends around it, and we find that people are trying to trick other people, but we also find that there's something real. So where there's smoke, there's fire, and these are like holdovers, dinosaurs, plesiosaurs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I want to get your reaction. We pulled this video up. Lindsay's found it, and I want you to take a look at this, John, and tell me what you think. Because I think this is the best footage of something in the water anyone's ever gotten. It's like that video footage of Bigfoot you always wish someone got. Now, watch as it gets closer.
Oh yeah.
Look at that.
Yep. Oh yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You can see the body, the long neck, and it looks exactly like a plesiosaurus.
Yeah. 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 That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's serious stuff. And he didn't even know he took this. He was just uploading drone footage, and everyone
Right.
started commenting on this video.
Right. Right. Wow. That's very cool. Yeah. I think that these are when you get to these things, I do believe that they've been able to evade for the most part. And they're pure 3D physical things that are living there. But when you get to the dragons and some of these other things that happen in the Devil's Sea, I think it's a different type of thing in general. I think that there is something different going on there than what you find around these other creatures. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So actually, I totally butchered that when we were talking about that octopus monster. I think it's Akoro Kamui. How do you pronounce that, Lindsay? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's how I've heard us look that up before.
Got it. Okay, yeah. And so there's a bunch of other sea monsters that have been talked about over there. The how do you pronounce that? Akuguyo? Guyo?
I'm not entirely sure. Akugyo, maybe?
Akugyo.
Got it. Monstrous fish that capsize ships and feast upon the drowning sailors. Described sometimes as fire breathing. Wow. Sometimes described as gigantic ningyo, or half fish, half human, which is a mermaid.
Yeah. Wow, that is the coolest mermaid picture I've ever seen. Oh man,
It is.
that is awesome.
It looks like a photo if you combined a Japanese woman Bigfoot and like
it's got shrimp legs too. Like it's got like little shrimp legs or something.
Yeah.
What the heck? That is an awesome picture.
And so the I believe this is pronounced Ikuchi, is a sea serpent entity or spirit located in the east coast of Japan. It's only spotted at night, rearing out of the water and slithering across the top of ships. And it leaves behind an extremely slippery residue of oil, so ships will sink if they don't dump the oil overboard. It's weird. Several thousand feet long and slow moving, so it can take several hours or even several days for the whole body to get across the ship.
Oh man.
They don't
attack. We got several days to wait before the fish gets across the whole ship, guys.
So have you ever heard of this thing called the Umi Bozu, also known as the Umi Hoshi?
I haven't heard of that one.
Sea spirit. And the sea spirit, this is in Japan, it appears on calm seas, which quickly turn tumultuous. And it appears at the end of the month and stays above ground for 3 days. So sailors should avoid going out on the sea and children should stay inside.
Wow.
Wow, look at that thing. That's weird. Yeah. Some believe these are fallen dragon deities. Some say they look like gigantic monks or priests on the water.
Wow.
Reports say the spirit destroys the ship when it comes out of the water or demands a barrel from the sailors before drowning them. Reports say that confusing the spirit by giving it a bottomless barrel will allow you to sail away. It asks people, "Am I fearsome?" Reports say if you admit you're afraid, it will give you a warning and leave. I would totally not be afraid of that thing on the right. Go back one. That just looks like, go back one, Lindsay. What is that? Looks like, yeah, look at that.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
It looks like someone you'd see in the Vatican.
Right. It's like you could just put your hand on their head while they're swinging at you and they won't even reach you.
Yeah. Just kick it in the stomach.
Yeah.
Run. That guy
Yeah.
on the left, just like, how is he going to move like that?
Yeah, these are incredible. This is just.
And
It
then,
was a
yeah,
different world back then. I'm telling you, it was a different world.
yeah, really interesting. Okay, so what did there's a dragon king palace fable. All right, and I
Right.
kind of want to hear more because you had alluded to having some juice on this, John.
Well, I mean, it's like the Japanese have a big fairy tale, supposedly fairy tale, called Urashima Taro, which is basically there was a fisherman who was watching a group of children like messing with or torturing a small turtle. And so he saved the turtle and put it back to sea. And then the next day, a very large, a huge, gigantic turtle came to him and said that he saved the princess of the emperor of the sea. So he gets taken underwater to the palace of the dragon god, which is the emperor of the sea, right? This dragon god is the emperor of the sea. So he spends 3 days there. He sees the baby turtle that's like transformed into a beautiful princess. And, he spends 3 days there. And they give him, he says he wants to go home finally. And they give him this little box to take with him. But he gets back home and he doesn't recognize anything and he doesn't know anybody. And he realizes that he's been put 300 years into the future.
Dude, another time travel?
Yeah, another time travel story. And so he opens the box up to see what's in there, and this white smoke comes out of it, and a beard starts growing, turns into an old man, and dies very quickly. And what was given to him in his box was his age. So it's like even down to fairy tales with children. You're talking about the Dragon King, going into the Dragon King palace. Like the Dragon King was the ruler of the sea, ultimately was the ruler of the sea. And I've never heard of dragons being rulers of the ocean, of the sea, and being underwater, except for these cultures in that area.
The Asian culture. Yeah.
Yeah, the Asian culture.
Yeah, actually, even some like lakes will be governed by the dragons.
Right.
Yeah.
And the Naga were in rivers. They were in lakes and rivers. And when we had viewed the Naga with remote viewing, multiple viewers, they are a real being. They are a being that used to live in the physical world, but crossed dimensions. It's kind of like a doorway in the waterways.
Mm-hmm.
And they mostly reside in a different location now, in a different world, in a different reality. But sometimes they can make their way out. So when we started to remote view some of this stuff, like for instance, I heard somebody say something about, it was, this is not even something that we normally task on with remote viewing when it comes to what other psychic-y people say about things. But
right.
It just got my hackles up and I'm going, what is this? What is this? Because there's something really weird about it. So I heard this psychic, and I don't remember who it was, say something like, well, whales there's this one there's one portal, or there's a number of portals in certain parts of the ocean. I think one of them was in the Mariana Trench, this person said. And whales will use this portal to go to another dimensional aspect of Earth and swim. They'll disappear, go through this portal down in the Mariana Trench, and then swim and come out through another portal in another part of the Earth. I thought that was a really fascinating idea, right? So I had started to task remote viewers around this idea, reality of the idea, anything that I can try and suss this out, figure it out, because there's something in that really struck me as being interesting. And what we saw with it was that whales were from another reality originally, and that they currently are living sort of split between one world, one dimensional reality, and another dimensional reality. And this other dimensional reality, and they know where this is, how to get in and out of it, because it's somewhere in the Mariana Trench area. They live with, there are other creatures there. Some of these creatures are like the Naga and would be like dragons. And so when you hear these stories, when I hear these stories, like a fable, a fairy tale of a person being taken to the Dragon King's palace, I'm like, yeah, I know where that is. Oh yeah, he did go to the Dragon King's palace. This is not a fairy tale or a fable, because this is that portal, the other world that we had remote viewed a while ago, that sits somewhere within the Mariana Trench. So I do think that these stories, these fables, so-called fables, are alluding to a time on Earth where it's like the whales now. We know of whales, but if the whales disappeared, we'd say they went extinct. No, they moved completely to the other world. Well, if we lived back then, wait, the dragons are gone. Oh, the dragons went extinct. No, they moved back to the other world. Sometimes some come back, but mostly they're over there. It's like a lot of the cryptids we run into as well.
Well, and why would they want to come back when the human world is in the state that it's in right now? Like, maybe if things get cleaned up more over here, they would actually come back more. Who knows?
It would be more, I think, that's a really funny thing, that you say. It's really interesting to me. I think a lot about these days about how humans can be very thinking that the world belongs to them, right? Like this world is just us. It's just me. And what if it's just not? What if it's not? What if we're such a small cog in a massive wheel? But yet every day we live in the drama of the internet of what other humans are doing. So we get this kind of myopic picture that we are everything. And I don't know why they wouldn't come back here. I don't know why. Are we so powerful that we chase them off? That they're afraid?
I don't think it's power. I think so. Okay, if we let's talk about this from history, right? If we look at humans from the perspective of history and what we've been told about how we came about, we were every single culture separated by thousands and thousands of miles, which is exponentially greater the further you go back in history, have all said that humans were created in the image of God, out of clay or out of sand or out of earth. Every single one of it's bizarre. How is that even possible? Unless it was true,
right? At
some level, right?
But that's always been my question. So when you get into like judgment, and the earth being destroyed because of what humans have done, I think about all the creatures, the other kingdoms that are here, and I think, well, why would they be destroyed?
Maybe they weren't, though.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying. But I mean, there's like that viewpoint, like that I don't.
Well, but yes.
Understand.
So it's like, but the idea. Okay, so like, let's say that that's true. What I just said, right? So the human body is actually pretty special then, because it's not just a normal body. You're not talking about a random animal body. Like, everything in the body was set up.
Yeah, there's like a genetic manipulation that's been real fine-tuned for something.
Right. It's like there's a technology that exists within the body that's greater than potentially anything else that's out there. Because look at what monks can do. Look at how
Right.
amazing a body can be pushed. There's things about the body that we don't even know. The fact that you can't even use all of your brain, what would happen if it all opened up? The entire thing,
Right.
right? So if human beings are good, meaning they're taking care of the earth, they're peaceful, kind people, potentially they're interacting with these things all the time a lot more because they're not a threat, right?
Right.
Like and all of a sudden, if a culture or a group of people start to like digress a ton and they become less and less moral over time and they're more and more destructive over time, why would these beings visit or be put in a place where they could be harmed or anything like that? There's just no way, right?
Yeah, I know, and but it's just really bringing this up for just like a thought problem, or like
Sure.
trying to understand it a little bit clearer. I don't even know if these understandings are correct,
Right.
but I will tell you this: that we do see with certain cryptids that people argue over, these things being real, like a Bigfoot creature has an ability, not just the Bigfoot, but others, has an ability to slip into that other world for a moment so it can't be seen. Right. So it's like genetically, these creatures can find these locations, it's tuned into them to find these locations, or even turn themselves invisible to move into that other world. Um, and it's like when the advent of humanity really started to populate, that's when we saw that retreat. That's my idea. That's when we see these other
Yes.
beings begin to retreat, find the portals, go to that other place.
Yeah.
So
Why, right? You're asking why.
Yeah, it's like
I mean,
getting
sure.
away from the humans. So and I always think,
Well, maybe it's
is it
not just
really?
getting away, right? I mean, look at the way J.R.R. Tolkien describes that in Lord of the Rings. It's no longer the age of the elves and some of these other creatures. It's the age of humans that
Right.
come to pass. Like there could be things that are above our pay grade going on,
There are definitely things above our pay grade going on.
Of course.
I know. And so, I mean, back to it, it's like all of these stories, like, and you should talk about some of these dragon stories, because and keep in mind, like for those that are listening, look, these are things that are passed down to, person to person within these civilizations. But what we've seen with it is that they have a root, a basis as being a physical reality, at least at one point. So when you think of it from that standpoint, as opposed to something cultural, like it's a cultural idea, it totally takes on a different meaning.
Well, and through research, I've been finding more and more that these stories happened rather than they were made up to make a point.
Exactly.
Actually happened.
Right.
And what's cool is that we can have you remote view stuff sometimes and find out, did it happen?
Right.
How much of it happened? How much of it is, because sometimes stories are just kind of like merged. Like right now, actually, this might actually upset some people, but I'll just say it anyway. And it's like look at Saint Mary, okay, Mary Magdalene, and then you've got Mary, Jesus's mom. What if over time people just kind of like, think about it, like Mary is always shown holding a baby, it's baby Jesus, all of that. But actually the Mary Magdalene, like that was just Jesus's mom, right? But the Mary Magdalene that was like really involved with the entire story, the Mary that was really involved with the entire story was Mary Magdalene. So, is it possible that these two characters just kind of merged into one? And it's like, it's fine because it's like, whatever, Mary holding the baby, but really Mary Magdalene was the one that was the one that followed Jesus and was like holy.
Right. But there's these two separate identities. Yeah. And for serving the story. Right.
Yeah. does it matter that human beings got that wrong or that we're confusing? No, who cares?
Right.
Like even if you don't believe me right now that happened or that's a possibility, it's fine too. I'm just saying we can sometimes merge stories together or confuse
Exactly.
things,
Yeah.
but it doesn't necessarily reduce or lessen the meaning of certain things that we hold to be important because
Right.
it
Exactly.
happened for a reason.
Right.
You know?
And that's why I, throughout all the stuff that I've ever done on remote viewing and research in order to understand what the remote viewing is saying, what we've always seen is that the ancient documents, whether they're in Asia, India, native peoples across the world, in the United States, they're telling us a physical story. Like they're telling us, giving us information of something physical that happened. It's
Yeah.
not, they're not
Made
dumb
up. Yeah.
or made up. Like we think we are just exponentially moving upward on a scale of intelligence. Nothing like that has happened.
And we're not actually. It's pretty
No,
pathetic.
we're not.
Yeah.
And so I love looking at these stories because they've got so much meat in them to a person that knows what to look for.
Exactly. Exactly. So this story, the Dragon King Palace fable, the legend says that positive water dragon deities live under the sea and in the beautiful palace of the Dragon King. They can rise up to protect the kind-hearted and bring retribution upon evildoers. The deities have the power to give mankind powerful gifts, assist humans with their righteous endeavors, allow worthy humans to visit their realm, just like the story we were talking about before, and prevent unjust deaths. Ocean phenomena like whirlpools, giant waves, and wind can be a sign of the deities' work.
That's so interesting. Okay, so for instance, when we looked at the Naga left because they were fighting with humans. And when we initially looked at the Naga, there was this thing that was coming through, and all the data was they don't like humans. They don't like humans. But if a human is pure, if a human acts in like good and humble ways,
Righteous,
then there
kind-heartedness.
are gifts, and the Naga will pay attention. So that there was this division. There was this like this thing where humans began to fight with these creatures, and they left.
Well, yeah, that's what's going to happen, right? And you know what's weird is, this story that you told earlier kind of bleeds into the regions around there. I think there is I told you once a couple episodes ago about this show that you got to go check out called Shen Yun, where they're reintroducing the Chinese culture out there to everyone. And, the Chinese culture has been just brutally suppressed actually by the current, what do you want to call it? I mean, dictators over there. And so this story that was told through the performances basically goes that in a seaside village, a young painter befriends a mysterious maiden and defends her from a band of ruffians. In gratitude, she gives him a magical brush that turns anything it paints into reality. She then flies away, assuming her true form, a silver dragon. Okay, the kind-hearted artist paints a granary, I guess, for the villagers. I don't know if I pronounced that right. But anyway, suddenly, granary, thank you.
Like full of grain.
Thank you, okay. But suddenly, the thugs return, steal his brush, and knock him into the sea. After being rescued and visiting the underwater Dragon King Palace, he returns to his village. There he discovers the greedy ruffian still struggling with the brush, which will not obey an impure heart. Though they try to force the painter's hand, he has a plan and tricks the ruffians. It's actually quite similar with the different stories about the dragons that they have and them kind of like you were just saying, them respecting the ones that are pure of heart and all of that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. This is good stuff. This is historical. I mean, this is like big aspect of this is historical documentation.
Right. Okay. So, the Dragon Palace, or the Ryugu-jo, I don't know if I pronounced that right, is where the dragon god in Japanese tradition resides under the sea. Okay, so the question is, why do things happen in the dragon's triangle? I mean, It's got to be, the vortices thing.
Well, yeah, I mean
Volcanoes.
that's totally like, I mean, like, what are the things that can happen? You've got, for one thing, I mean, it's stuff that we research. It's like locations that we want to go investigate. When you dig into them, the ones on land they're locations that have anomalies occurring, gravitational and electromagnetic, places with a lot of energy. Those are the locations that you want to investigate if you're a paranormal type researcher, because you're going to find the veil is very thin between dimensions. So, in my opinion, so the Dragon Sea and what we've seen is that we've got electromagnetic anomalies, which are known. We've got compasses freaking out, like the Bermuda Triangle. We've got these faults rubbing together, some big time faults. I mean, you get 9.0 earthquakes in that region.
That's the worst.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Tsunami Central right there.
It's tsunami central, right? You've got a lot of energy, tons and tons of energy. Anytime you find a volcano, weird paranormal stuff can happen more often than not, right?
I found this in my research when I was researching portals to hell. Volcanoes kept popping
When
up.
I was
man.
researching portals to hell, volcanoes kept popping.
They kept coming up. It was like every single portal was always near a volcano. There was always the sulfuric smell that you're getting from a volcano.
Right.
It was just over and over again. I kept finding it. It was a really bizarre thing.
Yeah. I mean, this is where you find, but see, I think a lot of this stuff, like they call it the devil's triangle because of the negative, they view it as negative based phenomena. So a lot of the negative based phenomena has to do with the volcanoes erupting. It's got to do with the pumice coming up. It's got to do with the methane. It's got to do with every single scientific thing people can think of when it comes to volcanoes being under the ocean and a ship being over it. So yes, all that stuff's true, but the other huge aspect of this is the portal aspect: high electromagnetic activity, gravitational anomalies. I think that this place is more strange than the Bermuda Triangle. I think there are more things going on here in this location than there.
Clearly.
And I think that this is where you actually are going to find the truly bizarre windows to other worlds. It's Surobune, the like interdimensional incense pot. I mean, these things, like when we look at this area, are moving in and out of this area because of the electromagnetic, gravitational, et cetera, the portals that are appearing and disappearing in that area. But then you have what I think is more of a consistent portal sitting close to or in the Mariana Trench.
Yeah, that Mariana Trench is, I mean, it's bizarre. Like,
Yeah.
I know, I mean, a lot of people are fascinated with it a hole that's deeper than Mount Everest, like that is a strange concept.
Yeah.
What's down there? I mean, really, seriously, what's down there? I mean, so Lindsay, I'd like you to pull up a map showing the Pacific coast of the United States and China at the same time. So that middle area where the Pacific Ocean is. I'd like to take a look at that because I want to see how close this area also is to Hawaii and some of these other islands that are out there. Because all across the Pacific, I mean, there's not as many weird things happening at the Atlantic as there are between the Pacific and, the countries on the Pacific. You can zoom in here a little bit if you could. And there's Hawaii out there in the middle of right there. Yeah. Interesting.
I think one of the most interesting things you can do is look at a seismic map of the ocean off Japan. To me, that shows all the power of the place. Even though that's like a physical material thing, those plates rubbing together,
Yeah.
the gravitational anomalies that these different masses are causing, as well as the fact that you have different currents swirling and hitting each other there. You've got a lot of energy. You've got the makeup for portals, basically.
Got
That's
every
what you've
kind of potential energy that the Earth has to offer in that area.
Right.
Wind under the ground and above.
Right.
So that's the Philippine plate there.
Yeah, and you've got the Pacific plate hitting up against it. You know, the one that took out the tsunamis that took out the Fukushima reactor were earthquakes right on the Pacific plate, and Pacific plate is a heavy mover.
Very interesting. Well, that was also a really super interesting episode. I keep getting asked what's on my shirt. So you guys, it's the American Dream, son of a plumber, because I actually am the son of a plumber. And this is a very famous shirt. It was worn by the great Dusty Rhodes, who was a wrestler back when I was a kid. If you didn't know. Yeah.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
You've never watched wrestling, John?
I don't know anything about that shirt.
You don't know Dusty Rhodes?
No.
This was a really famous shirt he used to wear while he was wrestling. There you go.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh,
there it is.
That is awesome.
There's some better footage of him wearing the shirt when he was a young guy, where he's with his buddies, and it's really funny. But yeah, it's a pretty classic shirt.
Oh man.
Anyway, you guys, hope you all enjoyed this episode. Yeah, these two episodes, such a fascinating area. You know, when we first started talking about this area, and I talked to you, and you just sounded really confused, and I was like, oh, it sounds like he didn't really find very much in this area. That's too bad. But after shooting these episodes, I realized that the confusion came from, like, I don't even know what to make of this place.
Right. Yeah.
Well, thanks for being with you, John. Lindsay, thanks for everything you do. And hope you all enjoyed this episode and thought it was as out of this world as we did. See you next time.